So Pete at Battlefront has issued his 2025 end-of-year State of the Union address for the future of Battlefront and Flames of War and Team Yankee. And I would love to talk about all the early war and the possibility of late war Pacific, the return of the armored trains, and the possibility of plastic Matildas. People are going to go over that. There's plenty that has been announced for the year 2026 that is specifically, it's on a lot of people's minds. However, there's 3 things I'm going to cover that were covered as potential future projects. One of them is 2026, but if we see it a bit later, we have 3 projects that I have definitely taken interest to because they are so different than what we expected. And that is Team Yankee in the Falklands, Team Yankee in the East China Sea, and a brand new game, Volley and Charge, which is essentially Flames of War in the 1800s. Oh boy, where do I even start? All of this has caused me to tingle because it's just so much new and exciting material to go over. The Falklands is something where, as a project, if you're a British player, that's got to be good news for you because you get to beat down an enemy that doesn't do BMP spam. Thank God. One thing I know about the Falklands, I don't have too many sources on it, but the Falklands, first of all, they use Skyhawks in their Air Force, so we're going to see Skyhawks fighting the Harrier. We're going to see 3 different possible types of troopers on the ground. The Argentinian army had their conscripts. They're led by professional NCOs and officers, but they're mostly conscripts. The Argentinian Marines and their Buzo Tactical Special Forces, which may just be a separate unit that's a support option as opposed to being its own formation. If it is its own formation, it's going to be small and underfed. Pretty much bizarre for Team Yankee since I believe their primary armament was SMGs. Yes, SMGs and Team Yankee. Don't ask. Putting that aside, the one that really catches my attention is the East China Sea project. China versus Taiwan, North Korea versus South Korea. And we're looking at that in the framework of 1985 through 1990, which is where Team Yankee at this point in time really is set. Now, we have been promised we're going to see some China for the Checkpoint Charlie game. But something tells me the East China Sea for Team Yankee is going to come first, and then later we'll get China for Checkpoint Charlie. I kind of want it to be the opposite for various different reasons, but of course Battlefront can only produce so many things at a time. They're not a huge company, they're a medium-sized company, and they don't have all the resources in the world. One thing that I have had people point out, in the East China Sea project, why do we not see Japan included? We could, but it's for political reasons. Japan doesn't have an offensive army and an offensive navy during the 1980s. They have the ground and maritime self-defense forces. Being self-defense forces, they can't be anything but the defender, and someone would have to go after Japan as an objective. Whereas we have the very luscious South Korea as an opportunity target, and we have the very vital Taiwan as an opportunity target. Some people might also be thinking, what's going to be the difference between the PLA and the North Koreans? North Korea does seem to have more of a focus on their Juche policy and on their fearless leader, whereas China is kind of communist in name only, and they have always tried to, well, there's one thing I have to point out. China went through a major military rehaul after 1981, I think it took place up until 1985, where they realized their old cultural evolution policies that took place in their army had to be thrown out and replaced with something else. And so that's kind of where we get the modern PLA from China. The People's Liberation Army of China has different focuses in Team Yankee than it would in Checkpoint Charlie. I've been doing some research because I want to make a video about this, because I see the topic is kind of blurred. If you try to research Chinese infantry, you're going to get the modern version. The Chinese infantry of the 1960s and early 70s was very, very different. And I would like to show the difference. This is going to be funny because it does kind of put the pressure on Battlefront to do one of 2 things. 1, make 2 different brackets of Chinese soldiers. Or 2, they'll have to make one of the eras and then pass it off as being worthy for the other era when the time frame comes along. And oh my God, are they different? They're so different. I mean, I'm going to stop right here and then just keep going. Moving on to the one that actually interests me the most for a single reason. Back in 2nd edition, I had this idea, what if we remade Flames of War to be playable with the American Civil War? And I thought it was a really cool idea. What do you know? Out of nowhere, Battlefront does that. And they're not going to be just making American Civil War. They have projects in the pipeline for the Crimean War, that is the Light Brigade, the American Indian Wars, the Native American Wars, as I would call them. It says Samurai Wars here, but don't be too misconstrued. This could mean one of two things. It's going to be the Boshin War and the Satsuma Rebellion, and most likely, it's going to show either stuff you'd see in the movie Last Samurai, for lack of a better term, or it's going to show stuff that we don't usually see because the Boshin War had a very strange balance of Edo-era samurai and ronin mixed with semi-modern musket use, black powder use. So we might see figures like that kicking around. Of course, there's also the Franco-Prussian War. I know a lot of people are into that. I not so much, but it doesn't matter. They have 5 possible settings coming out for Volley and Charge, and I am interested in seeing what they do with this. I have a few things I must bring up. I don't know how they're going to do muskets working. In my idea, muskets were 0 rate of fire on the move, but if standing still, they had a rate of fire of 2, and then the rank directly behind them could add a rate of fire of dice if they also were sitting still that turn, as opposed to just moving in. I'm also wondering, should infantry bases in Volley and Charge have a direction? In any case, it's going to be different, and I'm wondering, because of how different the tactics were in this time period, how they're going to approach the game Volley and Charge. Either way, I'm up for it. There's going to be a starter box for the Confederates versus the Union. I'm going to go ahead and buy a copy of that, maybe 2, depending what they put in there. I will play that as a game, at the very least. We'll see how that goes. But this really excites me because not only have they verified they are expanding Team Yankee in the 2 directions that the player base is going to love, and then just the opportunity of the whole new game where it's black powder. I could do a whole new video on the American Civil War and how it's actually an extremely interesting conflict. I would even say it evolves during the war to be not a Napoleonic conflict, and it's the first modern conflict. So anyway, I'm just rattling on here. Please go watch the video. It's over there on battlefrontcommunity.com, battlefront-community.com if you're just going to type the URL in. That's also on the YouTube channel for Battlefront/Flames of War. I hope you guys have a great rest of the holidays and a Merry Christmas. May the dice always roll in your favor.